Bienvenue à tous. Welcome to Reporters here on France 24. I'm Mark Owen. In this edition, we take a boat journey to see which way the political tide is turning in the United States. We've been asking voters what they think on the key issues: abortion rights, guns, crime, poverty, climate change. The views we gathered on our journey down the Mississippi River may well provide some clues on how the US will vote in the midterm elections on November the 8th. Control of Congress is, of course, at stake. Fanny Allard and Keren Gorgistani with this report.
We start our trip down the Mississippi River in Minnesota. In May 2020, Minneapolis became the symbol of police violence in the U.S. following the murder of George Floyd at the hands of a white officer. Since then, at least 4 other unarmed black men from the Minneapolis area have been killed by police. Among them, 20-year-old Daunte Wright, who was shot and killed during a traffic stop in 2021.
See, he was light-skinned and he still got profiled by the police.
I never in a million years thought that something like this would happen to us. We're not gangsters or doing bad to people. We're decent people. This wasn't supposed to happen to us.
When Wright tried to get away from officers, Kim Potter, a 26-year veteran of the police force, fatally shot him. The officer, who claimed she mistook her gun for a taser, was found guilty of manslaughter.
There definitely is a problem with the way the police are trained, with the way the system works. If my son had blonde hair and blue eyes, he probably would still be living today.
Since 2020, about a third of Minneapolis's police officers have left the force. The police department has made changes: unarmed patrols, shorter working hours, and a focus on regaining the trust of the community.
I've been very intentional in reaching out to communities because a lot of them don't know us. They see the uniform. So when they see the uniform, they think of what happened on that May in 2020, but that's not like all of us. Like, we're people too.
Earlier this year, the Minnesota Department of Human Rights released a scathing report showing the Minneapolis Police Department had a pattern of racial discrimination.
When that came out, that bothers me. That it says that we have a pattern of discrimination. From what I see here and what these officers are doing, what I'm doing, yeah, I mean, there is that incident. We have some history. I understand that, but I don't believe, personally, I don't believe that's us, and that's not what we're trying to do.
In May, Joe Biden signed an executive order directing federal law enforcement agencies to revise use of force policies. With one major flaw, according to critics: it does not apply to the country's 18,000 state and local agencies.
Joe Biden came in off the energy of the Black Lives Matter movement. He met with George Floyd's family, but he still hasn't passed meaningful police accountability legislation. They need black men to come out and vote. Well, black men are saying we need economic justice and we need the police to stop killing us. So if you can ensure that, then we can vote for you. If not, we're gonna look in a different direction.
Despite making up 13% of the population, blacks still represent 25% of those killed by the police this year, a disparity that could cost Democrats part of the crucial black vote. On to Wisconsin now, where abortion has become all but illegal. Sam White is 23. She got pregnant back in May and was supposed to get an abortion the day the Supreme Court of the United States overturned Roe v. Wade.
My friend was going to drive me. She showed up at my place. We had all of my stuff ready to go. And I got a notification on my phone from the AP News saying that Roe was overturned. Right after that, I got a call from Planned Parenthood, and they told me that they were unable to see me. Effectively, abortion in Wisconsin was immediately illegal. I was upset about the impact that it had on the country, but also the impact that it had on me as an individual.
Working evenings as a waitress to pay for her studies, White says she would not have been able to raise a child on her own. Despite her struggles, she was able to make it to neighboring Minnesota in time to get an abortion.
It was really, really hard for me, but at the same time, I am, a college student. I have an education, I have a job, I have a car, and so I still am privileged. It was an awful situation, but I couldn't imagine going through it without some of those privileges. I would say that out of all of the issues our country is facing, for me personally, women's rights is number one right now.
Under an 1849 state law, which is currently being challenged in court, it is a felony to provide an abortion except when the mother's life is at risk, with no exceptions for rape or incest. A rollback of women's rights that has fired up activists ahead of the November 8 midterms.
Hi, are you Laura?
Yes.
Hi, Laura. I'm Joella. I'm with Planned Parenthood Advocates of Wisconsin. So we're just out talking to neighbors today to see how folks are feeling after the recent Supreme Court decision that overturned Roe versus Wade. There's some pathways to restoring legal abortion services in Wisconsin.
I'm afraid, but it makes me hopeful to know that there are people willing to fight for what we all deserve.
Planned Parenthood was aiming to spend a record $50 million to elect abortion rights supporters across the country.
There are politicians who would like to see that codified, really keep that as the law of the land in the state of Wisconsin. And so it's important from our standpoint that we elect reproductive champions who will fight to restore that access and do what they can at the legislative and judicial levels to restore access to that essential health care.
Over the summer, a wave of female registration saw new female voters in Wisconsin outnumber men by 17 points, with Democrats hinging their hopes on making abortion the central issue of the midterms. 800 kilometers south lies the second largest city in Missouri. Until recently, St. Louis held the grim title of murder capital of America, and it still has the second highest murder rate in the country. This father of four knows this all too well. His oldest daughter was killed in August.
While riding on the street that she was on, she was hit by a stray bullet. Supposedly, she rode in the midst of a gunfight. She wasn't doing anything wrong. She wasn't involved in the situation. She was just driving.
Deja Bowers was 25 years old and had a 5-year-old daughter. She was one of the nearly 160 victims of gun violence in St. Louis this year. Her father believes more gun control is urgently needed.
We're just irresponsible. And this epidemic that we have with guns in this country, if we don't have comprehensive gun reform, if we don't lobby our representatives and our public officials, if we don't do something, we'll constantly have individuals who are hurt and killed and murdered senselessly.
Missouri has the 5th highest rate of gun deaths in the country. It also has some of the laxest gun laws. The state does not have a minimum age to purchase a firearm, and anyone who can legally own a gun can openly carry it without a permit.
All right, so you are going to fill out section B of the form. It starts there with your name, place of birth, city and state. You can abbreviate state, height, weight, sex, birth date. You need 2 digits, and 4.
Licensed dealers like Les Steinberg have to abide by federal law, which requires a background check. But for unlicensed dealers in the state, there are no such requirements.
I believe a lot of what you hear and see as far as using a firearm in an inappropriate way are not done by lawful owners. The laws are good for the lawful people. I think the laws are ignored by many others.
With gun violence on the rise, Americans agree on the need for change, but not the solution. Democrats believe the answer is more gun control, while Republicans argue the key is tougher policing. Leaving the Midwest, we head further south to Tennessee. The home of the blues was hit hard by the pandemic. Now Memphis and its residents have to contend with rising inflation. Sandy Othmani runs a car service in the city.
Hi, Jennifer. This is Sandy with Sfax Limousine. I was just calling to confirm your pickup today for 3 o'clock.
For the first time in 20 years, she had to raise her hourly rates by $15 because of the increase in gas prices.
It's not just the gas. The insurance has gone up. The price of the cars have gone up. Just even the drinks that we put in the car for the customers, that's gone up. Napkins, everything has gone up.
Inflation has made things so bad, she's now considering selling her company. For now, though, she tries to keep her gas bill as low as she can.
But we'll try this Shell station. I should get at least a 5 cents off. We use different credit cards now that give us discounts per gallon. Yeah, see, regulars pretty good. It's $3.79.
In the South, inflation reached almost 9% in September, nearly half a percentage point higher than the national rate. And Othmani blames the Democrats for her troubles.
Every time we've had a Republican president, the country seems to be doing really well. I mean, Trump, for all his problems, and he ran the country like a business, and it was working for us.
Inflation isn't just hard on small businesses, it's also wreaking havoc among farmers. Marvin Rohde grows soybeans just outside of Memphis in the Mississippi Delta, but this year, he's operating at a loss.
I farm approximately 300 acres. My operating costs went from roughly $200 an acre to $320 an acre, and just want to be able to produce a quality product, and yet at the end of the day, make a profit to pay our bills as farmers.
Inflation has gotten worse since the war in Ukraine. Diesel and fertilizer prices have doubled. To keep afloat, Rohde has come to rely on his fellow farmers.
It's an inch and a quarter. It's probably an inch and 5/16.
We try to utilize some equipment that I may have that he doesn't have. You know, instead of us both buying the same thing, you know, just trying to cut costs.
Recent polls have consistently shown the economy and inflation are by far the #1 priority for American voters. And among those voters, a majority trusts Republican more to fix the economy. Last stop down the Mississippi River, Louisiana. Founded by French settlers more than 300 years ago, New Orleans is under threat from extreme weather events. To protect itself from hurricanes, the city invested $14.5 billion in a new levee system.
It's not a 100% perfect system. It is a risk reduction system. Climate change makes every place in South Louisiana more vulnerable.
The city is now surrounded by a 560-kilometer-long and 8-meter-high wall. The system survived its first big test in 2021 with Hurricane Ida, but remains fragile.
The levees continually need to be maintained. Here, you can actually see that part of the flood wall is sinking. This piece and this piece were level, and now we have probably, that's about 2 inches, about 5 centimeters worth of displacement.
Hurricanes aren't the only threat. The whole Louisiana coast is also facing rising sea levels, and experts warn they could rise by 60 centimeters by 2050.
If you were to look out into that water over there, you'll see that there are a bunch of dead trees. This was once a cypress forest, and that would have provided a natural buffer for New Orleans from storms and hurricanes and water.
To face the growing threat, local businesses are trying to find solutions. This company recycles glass from the city to turn it into sand, hoping to slow the erosion of the coastline.
We bring in about 15 tons of glass a week. Everything that's crushed drops down into a trommel. Heavy material falls straight to the bottom into this bag here. This is our main outflow product.
The sand is then transferred into burlap sacks, which decompose within 6 months, allowing the new material to mix in with the environment. So far, 1,250 tons of glass have been recycled here.
The state of Louisiana loses a football field of land every 100 minutes. We can't replace that, but we can strategically deploy our material to slow down erosion.
3 times a week, residents come to drop off their glass bottles.
How much impact it really has, 40,000, 2 million.
Depends on the setting. If it's well deployed, 10,000 pounds of sand can change the trajectory of a marsh.
Right. Coastal restoration has been something that we fight in Louisiana. My whole life we've argued about it, and so when you see it firsthand disappearing, it's kind of a shock. These guys fight that battle. The way I fight that battle is by dropping off glass and voting.
On November 8, voters in Louisiana and across the country will cast their ballot. While about half of them say climate change is important, it comes far behind other issues like the economy, abortion, or crime.
Fanny Allard and Keravan Gorgistani with this week's reporters. You can see their film again on the website france24.com. Our coverage continues of all aspects of this midterm contest. Thank you very much for watching. Stay with us. Most of all, stay safe.